on. Testing. Is good?
Good.
Perfect. All right. Whew. It's been a while here. All right. Thank you so much for having me today. Before we get started, why don't I open us up and pray? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing each and every one of us here in your house, Lord. Giving us traveling mercies, driving here safely. I pray for this message that's going to be given, Lord, that it may come out clearly, concisely, and that it may bless your people. I pray that they're able to take something out of it, and when they leave here, your house, Lord, and return to their regular lives, that they may be able to apply it clearly, concisely. Thank you so much for this wonderful day, another day of life. In your name we pray. Amen. So again, thank you so much for having me. Pastor reached out a couple months ago during the first youth overnight about speaking on the topic of navigating Christian families in today's society. I remember looking at Pastor and having to respectfully decline. I was a groomsman at my best friend's wedding that day. He wanted me to speak, but I promised I'd cover that topic as soon as the next opportunity arose. And here we are. I want to say something openly. This is a difficult topic for me because as I look out in the congregation, I see two different crowds. On one hand, I see the parents. On the other hand, I see the youth. Now, any public speaker knows that if you want the crowd to like you, you just pander. Or I believe the Tagalog word for that is sip-sip. Is that correct? Kiss up to them? But when you have two different groups, it's almost impossible to have everyone like you. So just like a referee, I'll try my best to give this message right down the middle. As fair as possible, only speaking the truth. You know, we live in such an amazing time. Medical advancements have us living way past our life expectancies. Technological advancements have created a comfortable and convenient life for us and our families. We live in a country, the United States of America, that promotes freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Wow. You'd think this is heaven. But just like any good dream, we eventually have to wake up to the brutal alarm clock of reality. The society we live in today is filled with distractions, selfishness, and hate. Medicine, specifically narcotics, are being abused on a daily basis, causing premature deaths to teens and adults across the world. I had actually bought tickets to see a young musical artist, only to have him tragically pass away the very next day due to overdose. Technology created to empower communication, is leading us to a superficial and self-centered lifestyle. You know, personally, I dislike the phrase, specifically when someone says, let's take a selfie. I think it's kind of nonsense. It's a bit conceited, but it's all right. I get it. It's a bit hip now. And the freedom of speech we are entitled to from birth is used more for cursing than supporting. It's a shame. All the glitter in the world does not make gold, and all the progress humanity makes does not guarantee good. Christian families have never faced this much turmoil in the history of mankind. So today, I want to bring to light 3 crucial points on how we as Christian families can not only combat, but overcome these downfalls in hopes for a stronger, healthier, and communal relationship with God, as well as one another. Consistency. Consistency is a word that doesn't make people jump out of their seats with excitement. At face value, consistency is boring and it's predictable. But in reality, it's one of the best ways to strengthen your family's faith holistically. When I was 12 years old, my mom forced me to join the church youth group Bible study at our old church. And to be blunt, I didn't like it. It meant giving up my Friday evenings of playing video games and watching TV and eating junk food in exchange for sitting around a circle with teens who were significantly older than me talking about a book. You know, there are very few children that would give up playing video games to talk about a book. I have yet met that child. To any preteen, that sounds like a punishment. And the first few weeks were absolutely terrifying. I never spoke a word unless forced. I avoided all eye contact with the youth pastor when he was calling upon students to lead or close in prayer. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know that feeling? Have you ever had someone ask a group of people who would like to pray for the meal? And suddenly everything in the room becomes extremely interesting. And your eyes go from the person asking for the prayer to literally anything else. I remember my trick in the household when my dad would ask one of us to pray was I would look at the bowl of rice in the center of the table and I would kind of count how many grains there would be until he asked somebody else to pray. So I'd look, I'd be like, all right, 1, 2, 3. It's kind of a big bowl, maybe half of it, maybe there's still left in the pot. So maybe about 1,058. And then, all right, clear your why don't you lead us up in prayer? I'd do anything to avoid praying in public. I felt embarrassed and unprepared. Now, even though I felt like an outcast at these Bible studies, I kept going. First, it was by force. Then after some time, by choice. Eventually, I found my identity, my voice. I no longer was just Red and Tita's son, or Reuel's younger brother. I was Reuel. I was able to read the Bible, lead prayer, and answer questions about Christianity or my faith with confidence and conviction, all of which would have never occurred without consistency. Without consistency in my attendance at these Friday night Bible studies that my mom forced me to attend when I was 12. I'm still not sure if I need to thank my mom. Maybe I'll mention it in the Christmas card this year or something like that. But my faith became my own, and my pursuit for God was personal. We can make an endless list of excuses. I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm going through a low season in life. But if something is truly important, truly the centerpiece of your life, like your relationship with God, you will find a way to accommodate. I noticed that, especially with Filipinos. We always find a way to accommodate. No questions asked. First Corinthians 15:58 is such a beautiful verse that perfectly complements the theme of consistency. It reads, "Therefore, my brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain."
Amen.
Wow. What a powerful verse. There are two phrases I'd like to highlight. The first is the work of the Lord. Many will see that and only associate the work of the Lord with mission trips or service-based work for the less fortunate. What Paul was specifically talking about when writing this to the Corinthians is that phrase, the work of the Lord, means obedience to God's holy word. This is not limited to just mission trips or service-based actions for the less fortunate, but it includes management of you and your family's relationship with God. You must help yourselves before you help others, or it will essentially be the blind leading the blind. The second phrase I wanted to talk about is when Paul clearly states, "Your labor in the Lord will not be in vain." Again, I'll read that one more time for the people in the cheap seats in the back. Your labor in the Lord is not in vain.
Amen.
Doubt is a common human emotion, especially for new Christians. We may question ourselves. Is all that we're doing, praying, driving long distances to church, mission work, giving our offerings, all of it, is it really worth it? Are my good deeds going noticed? Paul blows those worries out of the water with that one phrase. Just with that one phrase. Your labor in the Lord will not be in vain. Your efforts, your energy, your everything will not be in vain if truly dedicated to God. God acknowledges you. And though we cannot fully repay Him, your work will never be in vain. Your riches and your blessings will be both here on earth and in heaven. That's a guarantee. You know, I had worked in sales while in college, and the word guarantee is something we're taught to never use. because it's a permanent promise. But when we're talking about God's promises, not only will I repeat the word guarantee until it's ingrained in our souls as truth, but I can also say it fully acknowledging, knowing that God will provide. But see, that's the beauty of living in the truth being God. We don't need to speak with hesitation or reservation, because when you align yourself with the truth, you will always be right. That's the only reason I'm able to stand before you all today. Not because I'm a good speaker, but because I'm reciting to you what God has already guaranteed through Scripture. The second point on how to navigate Christian families in today's society is empathy. For those of you taking the SAT soon, that's an SAT word, so listen up. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. How many times have you told your personal problems to someone, only for their response to be their personal problem that they believe is either equal or greater to yours? Let me give you an example. When I was younger, I had a deep fear of swallowing pills. I already see someone laughing in front. My dad already knows where this story's going. I couldn't wrap my head around the concept of swallowing a Tylenol as a whole without chewing it. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And eventually, I had a cold, and I needed to take medicine. So my family literally had to pin me on the floor with my mom on top of my chest, forcing a single Tylenol down my throat. You know, just so my dad and my brother had my arms and my mom was sitting on my chest. And literally, she would pry open my mouth, and I'm just like, I'm trying to work away from it. She got my mouth open, she tossed the pill in, and then she would plug my nose, so I couldn't breathe. And the only choice I had was to swallow. Can you imagine the mayhem in the Mateo household? This is the stuff people don't get to see in public. But what they didn't know was that I just hid the Tylenol under my tongue. And so when everyone left me, I just, put it away, put it to the side. Just put it aside, that's it. But after all the wrestling and the fighting, my dad would yell at me. He would yell, "Why can't you just take the pills? It's so easy. I've got so much work to do rather than worry about this right now." It was like a hostage interrogation. He tried to bargain with me to take the medicine, but I wouldn't budge. I wouldn't flip. That's not in my blood. My dad then proceeded to take 3 Tylenol tablets without any water, just to prove how simple swallowing pills were. That's a weird flex, but okay. Eventually, I got over that strange fear. But I've always kept that story with me. My dad was never interested as to why I was so scared of taking those pills. He just demanded that I do so. This is a classic lack of empathy scenario. How can you expect to advise someone, anyone, when we aren't really listening? I've noticed that in today's society, we're focused more on responding rather than listening to understand. Hey, how are you doing? I'm good. You? Good. Boom. Conversation over. Listening to understand, that's empathy. Parents, can you say with confidence that your children can come to you with any problem, with any issue, or with any fear, and you can cast no judgment, loving them unconditionally? And youth, can you comprehend that although your parents are in a position as the head of the household, that they too are human and can make mistakes? That's a big one for me. That took me a while to figure out. One of the most humanizing moments of my life was watching my mom grieve the loss of her father, my grandpa. I was a freshman in high school at the time. I missed orientation and I missed the first day of school, which are both very important days, especially for an incoming freshman. And I missed those days in order to catch a red-eye flight from Seattle to Chicago. This was the first death I had experienced from anyone within my family. Now, my mom had flew earlier that week to join her brothers and sisters in preparation for the funeral. Now, before I continue, you must understand something about my mom. She has a reputation as being the strictest aunt by all 32 of our cousins on my mother's side of the family. You know, in my opinion, this is a woman who raised my brother and I with an iron fist. That's how I viewed her when I was a teen. She's strict. However, that very same person, my mom, was reduced to nothing but tears at the sight of her father laying in his coffin at the funeral home. Time stopped for me at that moment when I first had walked in and saw her. And something clicked in my head. That's the moment I stopped seeing my mom as someone invincible, but as someone trying her best to be a good daughter, sister, wife, friend, mentor, and mother. That's all the job she had. Though I'm still stubborn and can lose this insight from time to time, I know in my heart that's the empathy I have given my mother. She has dedicated her life not to just do good or just do well, but to do good. Especially when serving the Lord. The final point I'd like to underline when guiding Christian families in today's society is, of course, I gotta end it with this one, is faith. When I attended Seattle Pacific University, the university asked me to be a part of their student panel for prospective and incoming students. I've seen hundreds of students, and answered many questions. Questions that ranged from, tell me about your college experience, to, are the professors nice, or is the food good? But the question that stuck out most was by a parent who completely embarrassed their child. A mom raised her hand, stood up, and asked the panel in front of a packed auditorium, "My daughter has been making jokes about going to college, going crazy in college. So my question is, does the university have strict policies on breaking lifestyle expectations? And will I be made aware of this as the mother when this time comes? Thank you." She takes a seat. And as she took her seat, we all, the people in the panel, looked shocked from this blunt and loaded and controversial question. Because our job is we're trying to make it all look good, and we're trying to make it look fun. And unfortunately, for me, I already had the microphone in my hand because I was answering a question before. And no one, including the faculty and staff, want any part of this explanation. So I gave it my best shot. I answered the question accordingly. Yes, ma'am. The university takes the breaking of lifestyle expectation rules seriously. And yes, parents will be made aware of all rules broken by their children. It's something I just memorized from the university. But that didn't satisfy me. I wanted more. I wanted more from that. So I asked the mother if she was nervous about her daughter going to college. And she responded, "Of course! She's been in my household for 18 years. And I'm just supposed to expect her to make adult and good decisions without me? I'm supposed to just trust her like that?" And so I rebutted by saying, "Your daughter is 18 years old, correct? So that means your daughter has 18 years of lessons and experience under her belt given by you. There comes a time when you have to have faith that the lessons you've taught your child will be applied." I haven't spoken at a student panel since. I don't know why. I don't think there's correlation, hopefully. But my parents raised Kuya and I in the church. From ages 1 to 18, I couldn't remember a time we missed church, aside from sickness or vacation. And even then, even in the case of vacation, we found a church wherever we traveled. I remember we went to Hawaii, and we're on vacation, so I'm thinking, all right, I can sleep in, whatever. Dad was, all right, boys, wake up. And we had those two beds together, which is weird why he wouldn't just take a shower, but he demanded that one of us would take a shower. When my mom, it's 8 a.m., I'm waking up, I'm disheveled. What's going on here? What are we doing? We're doing another hike? I don't want to do a hike.